So lately I've been playing this new game called Snake Pass. It's a 3D platformer for the Nintendo Switch, and it's also on PS4, Xbox One, and Steam. I got the Nintendo Switch version because Nintendo made this beautiful console. They didn't make no games for it, so I've been hungering to play something new. They made this one. It's alright. Kind of getting bored of it, but yeah, I really want something new to play on the Switch, so I thought I'd get Snake Pass, see what that's about. It's a 3D platformer. You guys know I'm the 3D platformer man. I like myself some 3D platformers, so I'd like to try this out. It looks very different than what you're kind of used to when it comes to a 3D platformer. You play as a snake in this game, a snake named Noodle, and he's got a bird companion named Doodle. So you're Noodle and Doodle. That's adorable. I think it's a great new take on the concept of a 3D platformer. You don't have arms or legs, you're a snake, so you can't jump, climb, or grab all of these things and moves you'd kind of expect from a 3D platformer. Instead, you'll have to coil your body around the environment trying to make your way to your destination. Now, I feel like some people are probably going to try to argue this game is not a 3D platformer, but if you think about it, what is a 3D platformer? What is the word in that genre? Platform. It's a game where you have an obstacle course made of platforms and you gotta kind of get across it. That's exactly what this game is. There's platforms. Just because you can't jump doesn't mean you're not platforming. It's a very different way, a very unique perspective, and a brand new kind of game in the genre that we have not seen yet. Now, I feel the controls did take some getting used to at first. It felt kind of weird. I mean, you're playing as a snake, you're slithering around, you're not just in full control of this person with appendages and limbs that can easily get around the surroundings. So what you do is you use the left stick to kind of aim your head around. You'll use the right trigger to push yourself forward. The left trigger will tighten your grip around whatever you're coiled around. The X button raises your head, and not pushing the X button, you kind of let gravity bring you down. It's a game that definitely has a learning curve. It's going to feel really weird at first, the way the controls are. You really got to get out of that thinking of when you're playing other platformers. Again, you're not a character with limbs, you can't jump, you got to think like a snake. And it's one of the most satisfying learning curves I've really experienced, because as you slowly throw all these other ideas out the window, you start to think more like a snake. It's not like, here's a switch, can I grab it? No. How would a snake do this? Okay, I'll coil myself around here, fling myself, and make it fall over. Stuff like that. It's really satisfying. Now, as a snake, that's all you can really do is coil yourself around. You don't have any other moves outside of that, so the variety in the gameplay all comes from the level design. And because of which I feel the game is very focused on one thing. I see a lot of platformers try to add variety by adding different mission types or stage types, like Ty the Tasmanian Tiger was really infamous for having those vehicle stages. Snake Pass is a very focused game. It creates one thing that it's good at, and then makes everything revolve around that. So you'll find yourself navigating these jungle gyms of poles, all these rotating platforms. Later you'll see stage hazards like spikes and lava. And avoiding these obstacles isn't as simple as jumping over them or kind of going around them. You'll really have to learn to navigate the environment as a snake would. Now, your bird companion I mentioned earlier, Doodle, he has the ability to pick up your tail and bring it back onto the stage, which is really convenient. I feel that's probably something that they ran into in development. Your tail will keep falling off the stage and they're like struggling to get it back up. So if you press the Y button, Doodle will come over, pick it up, put it back on the stage for you. Looking at the gameplay footage, it might look like it's a little bit cheating, like, oh, you just get the bird to put you back on the stage. It's not like that at all. The bird's only strong enough to pick up your tail, so if you're falling off the stage, you're gonna die. The bird's not gonna save you. It's only if your tail's kind of like in this weird spot, it's just to reset yourself and get yourself back on track. The game has a very Aztec and jungle kind of vibe, which is a really interesting environment for a snake to navigate. All these ruins and bamboo poles and stuff. And I feel they got music to reflect that very well. It's really chill. It's got a lot of acoustic and wind instruments. Really relaxing vibe, which is very good because this game requires a lot of patience. And I feel the relaxing soundtrack gets you in that very specific mood where it's like, okay, how can I go about this? I'll wrap myself around here, up here. It's a very trial and error kind of game, I find. A lot of times there's going to be an obstacle course that you just keep falling off. I did find myself getting frustrated though, sometimes. You know how when you play a game and you can't beat this one part, like there's a checkpoint, and you get past this one part, and then the next part, and then that's the part you can't get to. So every time you die, you'll try to speed run these parts, and you keep dying in those parts because you're trying to rush it just to get to the part that you can't beat. You really got to throw that mindset out the window. You really have to take your time and be slow and methodical with it. Again, it's not a game about quick moves and jumping around platforms, reacting quickly to oncoming enemies. It's a game about keeping calm and slowly navigating yourself forward. I've been having a blast with this game. I really like this game. Now, I've been seeing some people online complaining about performance issues, and I didn't quite notice at first because I'm only playing on a 720p TV, but after I recorded the footage and played it on my 1080p monitor, yeah, there's some weird performance stuff. So the game runs in Unreal 4, and I guess that's kind of interesting. I'm playing the Switch version. I don't know if the other versions have this, but I'm playing the Switch version, and it's interesting because I think this is the first Unreal 4 game launching on the Switch. So it's like, okay, this is a nice way to demonstrate that the Switch can, in fact, handle Unreal 4. But the optimization, what is going on here? I feel the game's not quite in 720p. Maybe it's like slightly lower than that, like 650p. I don't know, it's really weird. And then when you're playing it in a handheld mode, it doesn't even look high def. Like it's 480p, maybe a little bit better than 480p. That's kind of weird because it's a beautiful looking game. It's super colorful, it's nice and cartoony, textures are really good looking, the animation's nice, it's got a lot of personality, sound design, everything's there. It's just the resolution seems like it's lower than it should be, and that's kind of strange. Now, that's not a huge deal. I play games on lower resolutions all the time. I play friggin' PS2 platformers upscaled to HDMI. That stuff looks fine to me, honestly. I know a lot of people out there are not going to feel the same way because they're not used to that, so that's something you got to be wary of, but you can't let that ruin the game for you, like a resolution output, because the game is super duper fun. One thing that does kind of get into the more gripey area is the frame rate will take a hit. Sometimes I've noticed. It's usually not too bad. I find when you start a level, it'll kind of chug a little bit to like 28 or whatever. It's usually at 30, but I find sometimes in the third world, the one with lots of lava, when I get to really high places, it'll start to chug like briefly. It's definitely nothing that even comes close to ruining the experience. I mean, even Breath of the Wild had some frame rate issues, and it's not a problem. It's still like a 10 out of 10 game regardless. And one more minor issue is I find the camera controls can get a little bit wonky when you're crawling into a tighter space. Even still, those instances are very brief and never intrude too much on the gameplay. So yeah, a couple of minor gripes, but nothing too big. Definitely not something I'm going to let ruin this game. I'm really glad I bought it. Something new to play in the Switch. It's really new. It's such a new kind of way of creating a platformer, and I'm really surprised no one's done this before. I guess people have done it, like there's those physics kind of platformers. What's that one, like I Am Bread indie game? It's, I guess, those kinds of like moving your body around physics kind of platformers have been done, but not in a way like this. Not in a way where you're an actual animal like a snake trying to navigate your surroundings in a very different kind of way. Now, the object of each stage is very similar to that of Mario 64, so you're in a very large open area. Maybe there's like a central part, there's kind of obstacle courses over here, over there. It's kind of like a small open world. You can kind of do everything in whatever order you want. You got to find 3 large gem things, kind of like stars in each level, and they're big enough and shiny enough so you can usually see them in the distance. You see one up a cliff, you're like, okay, how am I going to get up there? Along the way, there's a lot of minor collectibles. There are these bubble things you can get, and there's also coins. Now, the bubble things are usually kind of like bits and bobs you can pick up, like, oh, maybe I can take a detour here and pick one up. The coins are things that you're gonna have to get if you're feeling pretty brave. They're always there to tempt you. They're always put in very difficult situation that I guess higher skill players are gonna go after. Otherwise, you can ignore them, but it's always really tempting. And the thing is, the game doesn't have a whole lot of super frequent checkpoints. So if you die, you're gonna go back quite a bit, and you're gonna have to do some stuff over, and that's gonna get a little bit frustrating. But it's always like, man, I know I can get this. I know how to do this. Can I do it, though? It's always something like a pole kind of outstretching over bottomless pit and the coin underneath it. So it's like, okay, I can coil myself around and kind of hang down. Am I going to be able to get back up, though? I don't know. Should I risk it? It's something there, something extra, like, oh, I'm going to give myself a challenge, see if I can do this. If not, it's something you can just totally ignore. The game's got a lot of personality, too. You can use the D-pad to change the emotions on Noodle's face. You can make him kind of happy, a little bit happy, really happy, a big happy, or you can make him, like, looking kind of concerned. You can make, it's like, a Little Big Planet had a similar thing. It's a completely useless function, but I love doing it. But yeah, I'm having a blast with Snake Pass. I'm really glad I bought it. As a big fan of 3D platformers, I'm enjoying this game a lot. And I think if you're a big fan of 3D platformers too, you'll definitely enjoy this game too. It's on Steam, Xbox One, PS4, Switch. It's on everything. If you got something, you'll be able to get it. It's only 25 bucks. That might sound steep for an indie title, but I think there's enough content here to warrant that. It seems too high production value to be like an indie game. I think the people that made this game made like Crackdown and Dead Island, so it's not like an indie studio, it's kind of like one of those B-grade studios, so I feel like it's kind of like a B-grade game, not for full price, for like 25 bucks is pretty cheap for what this is. It's not physical, which I wish it was, but digital, you know what I mean. It's not quite an indie game, but it's not quite a AAA game either, somewhere in between. It's that B-grade platformer that I've been hoping would return, like, forever. Like, you always see games like Ty the Tasmanian Tiger and Gex, like, those are B-grade platformers made by B-grade studios. This is like a return to the B-grade platformer, except it's like this really excellent idea instead of this mediocre version of something that already exists. But yeah, Snake Pass, an excellent B-plus grade platformer. If you're into platformers, this is something you definitely got to check out. Don't let the minor resolution and frame rate issues keep you from buying it. I feel like it's something they'll probably try to patch out, maybe be like, okay, this is the first Unreal 4 game on the Switch, we're gonna optimize this a bit. There already has been an update. There was some like rumble issues. I was getting it too. Like for no reason the controller would just rumble extremely violently, and that's already fixed. So if they already got that out of the way, I'm sure they'll be able to optimize it too. So yeah, I'm getting off track here. Back to what my point was. Snake Pass, good game, platformer. Yeah, exactly. Platformer.